Here we are. Tour Lateralus. I have the music. I have the score. Tour Lateralus. Finally, the time has come. Now, some of you informed me in the comments and all your suggestions and everything that Lateralus is written and built on the golden ratio, which is linked to the Fibonacci sequence. For those of you math lovers and people who just love to get into that sort of thing, that's what I know about it. I am somewhat familiar with the concept of the golden ratio because actually it is something that we find a lot in music. A lot. And composers don't exactly sit down and say, all right, I have to measure this out, this, in order to get exactly the right balance. Well, if you've done any reading about the golden ratio or the Fibonacci sequence and how it's used in art, visually, musically, so on, you'll understand that it has to do with proportions and what is aesthetically pleasing. And there's a lot of discussion around it, pros and cons and everything. And the basic idea is that if we're going to really generalize, then roughly 2/3 of the way through, let's say, a song, is where you would expect to have the climax, the peak of the song. And if you listen to whatever is on your playlist, you may find that a lot of the songs you listen to follow that general rule. And there's this discussion about, well, it's just naturally pleasing. Yes, it is. It is naturally pleasing. And mathematically, we can chart it out and measure it out. Well, some composers have gone even further and said, all right, we know that mathematically this is pleasing. I am going to measure it out note by note and increment by increment. Some not only take the length into consideration, but other elements as well, harmonies and all of those things. And you can get really intellectually cerebral in the way you approach something. It doesn't always turn out sounding incredible, but at the same time, it's an interesting exercise to go through. And I'm curious to see, with Lateralus, how it came out, because so many of you said it's such a wonderful piece of music. And from what I understand, it's the time signatures or the rhythm or something of the piece that is built on this Fibonacci sequence in this piece of music. So that's what I know. Here I am ready to start. I won't be sitting and counting and measuring all the way through. I'm listening to the overall musical effect, and I'll let you know what I notice along the way. Let's get started. there's so much changing and shifting so fluidly up to this point in the piece. I wanted to stop several times, and then I didn't want to stop several times because I wanted to feel how it was developing. But I want to tell you a couple of the things that I noticed. The guitar opening has this nice little lilt to it. It's nice. And then I was trying to hear what's coming in. It sounded almost like bubbles in a fish tank at first. It was so subtle, and am I hearing something? Is that my headphones making a funny noise? And it grew and it grew and it grew. And finally I realized it's the percussion coming in. And it was a really interesting sound effect. So that was one of the things should I stop? Should I go back? Should I keep going? I decided to keep going because I wanted to hear how it would build up to this point. Now here we are at the first verse. And maybe I'll back up just a little bit because there was a lot just transitioning very fluidly, smoothly. It made me feel like, in a way, perhaps I was watching a dancer. It was very fluid and elegant in its setup. So here we are. Here's the percussion is more pronounced. I said I wouldn't really dig into the counting and the time signatures, but I want you to know that this is a very, I guess I wouldn't call it rare, because I come from the classical world where we deal with changing time signatures on a regular basis. It's just what we do. And so I don't find time signature changes to be some exotic thing worth mentioning. In my experience. But a lot of you have mentioned that time signature changes in rock music is not so common and is considered a bit more innovative or creative. Well, here this is a fun rhythm which is happening. It's not square. It's you have 3 and 3, and then you have 4. And if you remember in one of my recent videos, I did a little bit of discussion about the basics of rhythmic groupings. And this is one where obviously the composers have set it up in a way that it's a repeated pattern and the pattern groups nicely, but it doesn't let us, it keeps us feeling like we're moving because it never settles into something that is exactly repetitive. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 feels very much different from 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. That extra one little beat added in the final group of the 3. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 adds this dynamism to the music and makes us feel like we can't just sit back and tap our toes here. We need to sit up and get involved. And we start looking for what's coming next in the music because it doesn't allow us to rest in that moment. And here's how it looks like on the score. We have this group of 3 and this group of 3 and this group. It looks like 5, but this is 4. And it's easier to see over here. 3, 3, 4. And now you can see that they all have the same number of bars across. 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. That lets us know they're all the same size of beats. So, I promise I won't get all technical through this whole song. I want to enjoy it. But if you want to dig into more musical stuff, I am presenting a theory course and several other music courses in my membership group. So if you're interested, check it out and see if it's something you want to get involved in and maybe even support this page and this journey a bit. Let's keep going and see what comes next in the music. So interesting that in a piece of music that's written on the whole concept of this really brainy, mathematical, intellectual structure, they're talking about, the lyrics are saying, don't get too caught up in it. Just go with the flow, essentially. That's a creative little twist on the whole thing. I kind of like it. Okay, here we go. This is very interesting atmospheric. It does feel a little bit intellectual, brainy in a way, but at the same time, it's not too bad to listen to. Actually, some very pleasant things about it. This rhythm that's happening reminds me very much of the way that jazz musicians and blues singers handle the rhythm. There's this sort of sideways shift in it, and it's all written out in minute detail on the score, and it's written out very precisely. But you see all these exact measurements, but it's also the same sort of thing that artists and singers do naturally when they're just feeling the music and going with the flow. So again, it's something that doesn't have to be systematically thought out to actually be a part of the music. Anyway, let's back up here because there was this little vocal line coming in. Oh, another thing I was going to say is, I guess I thought that maybe the melodic material would be a bit more developed, but I'm seeing that this is very much focused on the rhythmic structure. They're not really giving a lot of attention to the melody so far, at least. Which is okay. It's just, I guess I somehow had in my mind, if you're building something off of the Fibonacci sequence and golden ratio and all of that, you're thinking melodically. But that's me from my classical background. And here they are thinking rhythmically. All right, here we go. So funny. I was just talking about how they're rhythmically focused, and now the lyrics say, I embrace my desire to feel the rhythm. Funny little coincidence there. Anyway, let's go on. I know, it's heresy. I did it. I had to stop it in the middle. Because there are some really interesting things being done with this guitar. I want to listen back a little bit. I guess some sounds I hadn't really noticed before. Interesting little allusion to this whole mathematical concept. Because again, if you look it up, you'll see this idea that it's a rectangle. It's usually illustrated with a rectangle and then a spiral drawn within the rectangle, a very elegant spiral. And now the music is kind of spiraling. You hear the voice just going round and round and round and round. They even use the word spiral here. And I caught it a while back too. I didn't stop to mention it there. And it's so interesting, but I was surprised by the use of the word random a few moments ago in the lyrics. Because there's nothing random about this. But it's just an interesting mix of ideas and concepts. And I see that they're trying really hard not to let it become something that is that stifles instinct and intuition and inspiration. They got this cool idea to try to build a piece of music around this. And at the same time, they're saying, look, don't get stuck in this. Don't get stuck here. Don't get stuck here. Because if you follow your instinct and your intuition, you're going to find this anyway, because it's natural to our world and the way we create so many times. Let's just keep going here. Okay. That was interesting for me. I can see why you all kept saying you have to listen, you have to listen, you have to listen, because it's true. This has a lot more musical design thought put into it compared to many of the other pieces I've listened to, which it's pretty obvious. Some of them are very instinctive, some of them are experimental in very precise ways. This one is also very experimental in a very precise way, but it took a lot of thought to put this together and make it go like this. Towards the last third of the piece or so, as it was building and we were kind of in this flow that had developed over time and was increasing, spiraling more and more, I began thinking, this could sound pretty nice with an orchestra. There were parts of it where I almost felt like it would sound better with an orchestra. And I don't mean that as an insult to anybody who loves this piece just the way it is. But there were places where, in the climactic moments, I wished for more substance to the sound, and it wasn't there, just simply because of the choice of instruments and the layering of tonal colors, we could say. And I am curious, I might actually go look up and see if anybody has done a cover of this with an orchestra. I won't be surprised if they haven't, but then I won't be surprised if they have either, because it really is designed for a band. But it would be interesting to see if there's an instrumental cover to it. Could give a whole different world of sound to explore at the same time. Anyway, I'll be back with more thoughts after I explore this a bit more deeply. You'll see it in the link here. You can follow that link, and that is where you'll find my second half of this experience when I talk about whatever it is I've discovered. Thank you for the suggestion. I'll see you soon.